What's up, everybody? It is Steve Witchell. It is Thursday, June 10th, 2021. I'm coming to you live from New Orleans at 11 a.m. Central Time. And today we have a very special webinar to present to you. It's a great time for this. A lot of people are getting back to work. This whole mess is over with after being out of work for a year. And it's time to get gigging, and it's time to get out there and making some money. And a lot of people still don't really have themselves organized, don't know what to do, how to get gigs, how to get the best paying gigs. So we have a very special guest today, founder of BookLive Pro. It's a system where you can get yourself organized, get yourself out there, and make the big money gigs, whether you're an individual musician or a band. And we're going to bring him in right now. BookLive Pro founder, Jared Judge. There he is.
Hey, Steve, thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. Welcome to Cover Band Central. I know you're a member of the group. How long have you been in the group, by the way?
A couple years now.
A couple years. Cool. It's great having this group because I get to meet people like you all the time that I know are out there that are kicking ass, that are really doing stuff to help musicians. And that's one of the reasons I started Cover Band Central, was to help the music community to learn, to educate them, to help them really make the best of this industry, and try to make the most money, because a lot of people out there have been making the same money for 10 years, 20 years. And the goal really here is to kind of up level our whole game, I think. And I think that's what you're doing for this community. So I'm really happy to have you aboard. And everybody out there who's watching here, whether you're watching live or on the replay, well, actually, if you're watching live and you have questions for Jared, he's going to give a whole presentation here. If you have questions, please hold them off till the end. We're going to have a little Q&A at the end. Stick around for that. It's going to be worth it to watch this whole presentation. It's really good. And he will answer all your questions there at the very end. So any other comments too, put them up. We'll see them, but stick around for that. So Jared, I'm going to let you just take it away.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you having me. Super excited for this. Like you said, now is the time to start to think about this. Things are opening up fast. Yes. It is a storm. Like the on switch was just turned on, and it's the musicians who are really prepared to take advantage of that are really going to get out there and gig every weekend, sometimes 7 days a week, and make a good living from this. So I'm hoping to share some of my stories and the stories of some of the musicians that I work with, of how we take advantage of this, and just some of the systems and processes we have in place. Steve, would you mind turning on that presentation?
There you go.
Awesome. So I'm going to share with you how to take charge of your gigging. A little bit about myself first. I'm a musician. I do play violin. I have played in a cover band before, but right now I play in a wedding string quartet, which is essentially a cover band in the classical world. I actually do play cover songs, like, I played Led Zeppelin on violin, which is super fun. And I've been doing this all my life. I'm a musician, went to music school twice, and I run an award-winning group. It's called Dream City Strings. I'm also a proud husband to my beautiful wife, Emily. She's also a musician. We actually chose our wedding venue because it was one of the venues that her and I played a gig at. So yeah, it's fun. I've been playing music all my life, just like many people here, Cover Band Central. We're all musicians here. We love playing it. That's what keeps us going. But for many of us, myself included, this booking thing is difficult. Many people here, this is probably not your first time trying to learn something new about how do I book more gigs and keep them organized so I can keep doing what I love. And I want to mention that if you've struggled with that in the past, it's not your fault. Like, there's so much information out there that it can totally be confusing. Many times, like, information overload itself can just get in the way of your success, and that's okay. But I want to reassure you that if you've struggled in the past and you don't think that you can actually start to get yourself these high-paying gigs and consistently get them, I want to put those fears to rest. You can do this. You just need the right person to explain it to you and the right strategies. So that's what we're here for. I know that many of us here, we're in cover bands and we want to book and play as many shows as possible. And I want to share with you how I've set that up for myself and others throughout this masterclass. So My school is my goal for this is if you already have an act that's booking and playing out more, I'm going to share with you a strategy that will take your bookings to the next level. I want you to think, what would it look like to have more bookings with less work? But if you're a beginner at booking, you don't really have your own act, or you're struggling to just get started, I'm going to give you a system and a process to get you started and launch your act. So does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. So I mentioned before, I am a violinist, but I don't just work with other violinists. I work with cover bands, and you'll hear a story from a really big cover band in Minneapolis, Shirts and Skins Band. So I work with cover bands. I work with soloists like guitarists, singer-songwriters, jazz combos. I do work with a lot of classical groups, but also touring musicians, and even groups that have multiple gigs per weekend or even day. So there are some groups out there that they have several units that they can send out in a given day and play, 5-10 weddings at the same exact time. And that exists in our world, but this works for all people in every place of their lives. It doesn't just work for weddings too. It works for getting your bar gigs. It works for your festivals. Definitely works for weddings and private events. And Steve told me earlier, he loves playing those because those are the ones that pay very nicely. Same for the corporate gigs too, coffee house and more. So it's all kinds of gigs because the processes are the same. It's just, how do you tweak them to make them work for each type of gig? All right, so here's kind of where the secrets start. My goal for this masterclass is to convince you of one thing, that the only way for you to quickly become one of the top gigging acts in your city without building a following or doing all of that extra work is by using gigging funnels. And I'll share with you exactly what a funnel is later, because you might be thinking, well, how does a funnel work for gigging? But in the past 6 years, kind of when I started my string quartet, I've had the amazing experience of playing hundreds of well-paying gigs every single year and helping other groups, not just string quartets, but cover bands and other types of groups too, book and play their gigs too. But it wasn't always like that for me. In fact, like just a few short years ago, 6 years ago, I had nothing. And so where I was in my life in 2016, I was in grad school for music to be an orchestra conductor. It's actually the same stage where I met my wife. She's that flute player down there. And in grad school, if anyone's gone to school, it's really hard to have a full-time job while being a student. So money was tight for me. So I decided I wanted to make some money playing music, which how many of you have that goal here? So that was when I decided I wanted to become a gigging musician and start a string quartet. And I knew that I wanted to play private events because they were the ones that paid good money for me. And I wanted to make money as a college student, So once I decided to start my gigging group, I knew that I had to play as many gigs as possible in order to get a paycheck consistently. And the other cool stuff was if I was able to launch this thing and start to play, then I'd get to play some awesome music. I'd get to hang out with my friends, and I'd start to get an audience listening to me and interact with them. So I was really pumped about that idea. But truth be told, I was pretty nervous to do that. Up until this point, I had always played for other band leaders. I was never a band leader myself. So the responsibility that came with that, it made me anxious. I was worried that I would let people down, that I wouldn't generate enough money to help my friends make rent for the month. And then on the other side, when people booked me, they were depending on me to make their events special. And if I screwed that up, well, there would be consequences, and I didn't want to let people down. Nevertheless, I kept going. I did something very smart, which was to put up a pretty decent website on our first go around. If you're a musician, it's pretty much expected that you have a website, and they range across the board from, I just put up a picture and hope that people book me to having a fully fleshed out website. Mine was kind of a little in between those two, but it was good enough that I could start actually booking, and I got my first wedding booked as a band leader, which was super exciting. So once we booked that first gig, I had to start doing the heavy lifting. If there are any band leaders who are on this right now, you guys know how much work goes into actually making a gig happen. Bandmates don't necessarily know behind the scenes. So I would do all the heavy lifting of booking and planning the gig, coordinating all the musicians, And for my gigs, we do use contracts. So I had to find a contract template online, type it up, mail it, hope that they would mail it back, sign. And then, it wasn't always easy working with my musicians. I would schedule the musicians, they would commit to it. And then this text message is actually an actual text I got from somebody backing out of a gig. So things like that would make me feel super underappreciated as a band leader. And I saw a couple of Cover Band Central posts about my bandmates have no idea what I do. And this is the reason why we feel that way. It's like,
I can definitely relate to this, Jared, because
Yeah?
I was a band leader too. And just seeing this text here, it gives me chills, just bringing back those memories of, having to get subs at the last minute, and oh my goodness,
PTSD.
Yeah.
But it's totally worth it though, because at the end of the day, like, this is my friend after a gig. We made some cash. We got to play music we love, and that was what kept me going. So even though it was frustrating working with bandmates, we kept going, and I kept booking more and more weddings. But the problem was, the more weddings I booked, the more the administrative work of running a band kept piling up. It was super frustrating. I don't know if you've ever encountered this, but like, my email inbox kept getting bigger and bigger.
Sure.
I would start leaving text messages on unread because I just couldn't deal with it at some point. And then my mind was so cluttered with spreadsheets and paper contracts and the checks that I would have to bring to the musicians, or remembering to Venmo them after every gig. And because of all this, I was still in grad school, and my studies started to suffer, which was scary because, am I going to get this degree or am I not? And I was taking private lessons at the time, and my private lesson teacher was getting super frustrated with me. It's not a good feeling. But then the worst possible thing happened at this apple orchard. So, weddings typically happen on Saturdays, and we had pretty much booked up every Saturday in the beginning of our second year, except for this one in November. And I checked all my calendar, my spreadsheet and everything. We had no gigs this Saturday. So I decided to take my then girlfriend out on a date to this apple orchard. Prime gig time, but no gigs on the calendar. As we're picking Honeycrisp apples, I think those are, I get a phone call, and it was the worst phone call of my life. And it was a wedding planner where, as soon as I saw her name pop up, my heart sunk. I answered it because, that's what professionals do. And I answered it. She starts screaming right off the bat, "Jared, where are your musicians? The bride walks down the aisle in 10 minutes. You guys need to be playing." And honestly, there was nothing I could do. I called every musician within like a 30-minute radius of that venue, trying to get people to show up, but nobody could. So they had to have the DJ play. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I had screwed up bad, and I'd made a huge mistake. So I thought that at this point, my gigging days are over. No one is ever going to trust me as a band leader ever again. And it was an honest mistake. We all make these mistakes. Like, Steve, have you ever made a mistake when you ran your band or as a player?
Yeah, every time. I make mistakes all the time. Mistakes are good, though, because that's how you learn.
That is how you learn. And it sucks in the moment, and you feel real bad about it.
Yes.
But the thing about that was, it kind of, after I got over it, it lit a fire in me. So after I recovered from my horror story, my grad studies led me to run a piano competition as part of my duties. I had like a TA-ship where I had to do some administrative work, part of which was running a youth piano competition where I got to listen to all these amazing young piano players play some music and win prizes, which was super cool. But this is relevant to the story because I noticed that the piano competition organizers were using a piece of software that was organizing the competition. It had the name of the person playing, the venue, like the room in the building they were playing at, the time, the piece that they were playing, and then it would remind both the administrative staff and the kids to show up. It would send text messages. And so that kind of got my gears spinning. Like, could this possibly work for gigs? So as I mentioned before, I'll reveal a secret to you. I'm a super nerd, like a tech nerd too. And so I thought to myself, if I could code myself these automations, these systems to remind me to show up to a gig, then not only would I never forget to show up to a gig ever again, I would also actually be able to dig myself out of administrative hell and maybe get my degree too. And so that was kind of where the inspiration happened, where I wanted to make this app for myself that would organize all of my gigs and run my band for me, while still letting me do all the important connection-based things, like, you know, relating to my musicians, talking to the people who are booking me, and making amazing music. So here's the plan I made to make that happen. First was I had to figure out what was my perfect gigging process. You know, the gigs that went really well, how did those go so well? And then I wanted to optimize it and create a system, like a series of automations and reminders for me. And then the thing was, I was approaching the end of my grad degree, and I was like, I don't want to get a real job after this. I want to do music full time. So I had to figure out, how do I get the word out there to book as much as possible? And so that's what I started to do. The crazy thing is that plan actually worked. And by the end of the second year, we actually booked 150 gigs. My company now gives out awards for people who put a certain number of gigs through our system and automate it. And so we call that the 100 gig award, and we have different levels, people 250, 500, 1,000. So that was when I won our first 100 gig award. But the cool thing was, once I started to do that, other musicians started to ask me, how have you done that? And then I started to help them launch their groups from scratch. Like the lady on the left, she played for me. She was a bandmate. She asked me, can you help me start my group? And I said, heck yeah, let's do it. And so she just won her 100 gig award. This cover band out in Minneapolis, the Shirts and Skins, they joined us during COVID, and they've already won their 100 gig award. And then I know, it's crazy because it's during COVID too.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Yeah, and then on the right, this lady named Pendra, she runs one of those bands that has multiple groups that they can do, you know, 5-10 weddings in a day. She just won the 250 gig award. So for me, it was awesome because I got to play all these cool venues, play music that I love playing, play with musicians that I highly respect and learn so much from every time I play. But the cooler part was, once people started to ask me, how do I do this for myself? Just watching the transformation of other musicians from not knowing how to do this to being gigging musicians every weekend or as much as they want. That has been the coolest part for me. So this is kind of where we're going to dive into some of the content here. But so here are the 3 secrets that I have figured out that I teach others how to do. The first one is gigging funnels, which is how to predictably book and play as many of your favorite gigs as you want. Second one is BookLive Pro, which is how to get the best member in your band to book and plan gigs for you 24/7 without ever complaining, asking for solos, or taking a break. Then the third one is market domination, which is all about, you do not have to be a marketing genius to get gigs. So I'm going to go through each of these secrets. And Steve, I don't mind if you want to ask me any questions or anything. You can feel free to interrupt me.
Okay.
So yeah, let's dive into secret 1, which is gigging funnels, how to predictably book and play as many of your favorite gigs as you want. So for me, the problem was I didn't show up to that gig. Something broke down in the process leading up to that. And I was super embarrassed by that, and I needed to figure out what went wrong. Tony Robbins, he's a motivational speaker. He always says, if you want to achieve success, all you need to do is find a way to model those who have already succeeded. And for me, I wanted to figure out what was a model that I could copy in order to make sure I was consistently doing my best work. And for me, I actually already did that. I had played many successful gigs before. This one just didn't work. So for those of you who have gigged before, I want you to imagine your favorite gig. For me, this was my favorite gig. We played, it was a wedding at the Milwaukee County Historical Society. Everything was perfect about this gig. Planning leading up to it was good. The musicians all showed up on time. The music was awesome. The couple who we played for at this wedding was super happy, and the pay was nice too. So once you imagine that favorite gig, it's time to reverse engineer how you got to that gig. what led up to that. And so for me, what led up to showing up to that gig? Work backwards. So before that, I scheduled myself and my bandmates. And that was a part of the process that was missing for that nightmare gig.
Right.
But before that, I collected payment. Prior to that, we got our contract signed. And so this was kind of the important part that went wrong there, was right in the scheduling myself and bandmates. But then I thought, a lot has happened before getting the contract signed. What happened prior to that led me to getting this gig? This is kind of where, a lot of people who say, I don't know how to get gigs. Well, This is one way. So before I got my contract signed, I'm always selling the gig, either over email or on the phone. If any of you reach out to bar managers, send them your EPK, you're selling the gig.
Right.
But prior to that, for me, for weddings, they always submit an inquiry on my website. And before they even can think about submitting an inquiry, giving me their email address, they have to visit the website and become convinced that they want to reach out in the first place. And then prior to that, they have to know how to find my website. And my band is on Wedding Wire because that's a directory that couples use to find people for their wedding. And so that's just how, for that perfect gig, this couple found us. And so that is a gigging funnel. It is the series of steps that a customer of yours goes through, somebody who's booking you goes through to book you, and eventually you show up to the gig and get paid. And I'm going to simplify it into 4 steps here. So the first one is I got traffic, website traffic, people coming and finding us. Then I generated a lead, which is when they give me their contact info. Then I sold to that lead, convinced them that they need to book my gig, book their gig. And then 4 is coordinate the performance. So at this point, you might be asking, why is this called a funnel? So we all know how funnels are. They're big at the top and then they narrow at the bottom. And if you'll notice the number of people that go through each step, it narrows. So once I get traffic to my website, only a small percentage of them actually give me their email address. Then only a small percentage of them are convinced when I sell them to book the gig. And then unfortunately for this gig, only I didn't coordinate the performance well. So it did become a funnel. And you send people from the top to the bottom, and that is how you can measure it and optimize it. So I hope this is clicking for some people, because it's a step-by-step process that gives you control. So how cool would it be to feel like you have control over the number of gigs you play? And how do we get control? Is by optimizing it. If you can measure the success rate between steps, then you can figure out how to improve it. And I'll kind of share the improvement process in the 3rd secret. But as you can see, these numbers, at the beginning, I'm losing a lot of people. And then between the collect payment step and the scheduling step, that was the big no-no. That was when I lost that gig and I didn't schedule people to show up. So does that make sense, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great how organized it is. And I think that's one of the reasons that people stall or just don't even start to take the steps, because they don't know the steps to take. But it's nice that you have it all outlined here. That makes it way easier. It's just like an instruction manual. It's great.
Yeah, awesome. And so, we're in Cover Band Central here. We might not all play weddings. We might not all be string quartets. In fact, I don't think anyone is string quartets. If you are, that's cool. Reach out to me, say hi. But you can have a bar gigging funnel. And you might already have this in place. You just might not know that this is the step-by-step process. So, Steve, do you have a list of bars that you reach out to?
Well, I don't myself, because I play a residence gig. So I'm playing at one club, the same 3 nights a week, same club every week.
Yeah.
But years ago, or over a decade ago, when I lived in Jersey and I was booking bands, I would have a list of bars and contacts.
Yeah, for sure. Like a big spreadsheet with names, emails, phone numbers, their website.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the first step for really dominating the market here, is building your list of bars and then reaching out to them. A lot of people send their EPK, A lot of people call them. James from the Shirts and Skins band, he just shared me recently that he actually will go and eat at their bar and just make that face-to-face contact.
Great advice.
Yeah, it's awesome advice, and it works for him. So then you'll sell the gig, you'll agree on the date, and then you'll schedule the group, then show up to the gig, and hopefully get paid. So to simplify this, the first is you're building your list of leads, then you're selling to that list, selling to the lead, and then you're coordinating the gig, playing, and getting paid. So for me, once I identified my gigging funnel, that's how I booked the next 20 gigs while I was in grad school. And it was awesome because I was getting paid as a broke grad student. So I'm going to share a quick story of a musician who played for me, who wanted to understand how to start to get her own gigs. And she is a cello player, but the process would be the same too for a cover band. So is that cool if I share that video?
Yeah, please do. All right, we can't hear it, Jared.
I'm wanting to start.
How do I share sound here?
Now I can hear it.
Okay.
A string quartet for a long time, but was far too intimidated by logistical hurdles that were in the way. And once I met Jared and the BookLive team, all of those hurdles started to dissolve, and starting my own quartet became a reality. I've been working with Jared for about a year now. He created my website for me, and he has been so helpful every step of the way. Anything that I need, Jared is there. He's a wonderful coach, mentor, role model, and friend. He's so easy to work with, and I wish him and the BookLive team the best of luck going forward.
Cool. So that is the first secret, which is how to predictably book and play as many of your favorite gigs as you want. Steve, any questions at this point?
No, keep going. You're doing great.
Cool. All right. So the second one is BookLive Pro, which is how to get the best member in your band to book and plan gigs for you all the time without ever complaining, asking for a break, or solos. And to give some context as to what BookLive Pro is and why it was created, I was still in grad school and I was super busy, and I needed to figure out how could I be less busy so I could actually graduate and get my degree. So I realized that for each gig, I was spending a lot of time on the admin work. I was selling about an hour for each gig, getting on the phone, typing up emails here and there. It added up. And then I was spending about 20 minutes typing up a contract, sending it, getting it back, 15 minutes handling payment, bringing the check to the bank, and then 30 minutes of very stressful work of scheduling the bandmates and dealing with subs if I needed to get any. And so this added up to between 2 and 3 hours per gig, which when you're gigging a lot, it really adds up. If there are any people on this live stream who teach privately, I want you to think, what's your hourly private lesson rate, or what's your hourly rate at your job or something? For me, when I was in grad school, I was charging $50 an hour for private lessons. And for each gig, I was losing about $150 worth of income just by spending it on the planning. And, when I started to do 150 gigs a year, that really added up a lot. And when I multiplied those numbers together, this number blew my mind. I was missing out on $15,000 of private lesson revenue just by coordinating the band. And so it was painful to me. It was financially painful because as a grad student, I'd rather be eating Chipotle instead of ramen, So it became so much work, and I felt like I needed to get somebody else involved in it. And I was racking my brain, are there anybody else in my band who could do some of this work for me? And I realized nobody else in the band knows everything about my band and the booking process as much as I do. So ultimately, you are the best person to do this work. Really can't be delegated. So how could I clone myself? And that was by automating, creating some system for myself that does a lot of the work that doesn't need to be done by humans. The work that did need to be done by humans is selling. That is a connection-based activity. We need to build those relationships. Couldn't automate that, but I could automate the contract signatures, could automate the payment by doing credit cards or online digital payments, And then I realized that for the scheduling, I was sending the same message over and over again. Hey, can you play this gig? It's on this date, this time, this venue. This is the pay. This is the type of gig it is. Give me a yes or no. So I could automate that, and I could have them just click yes or no, and that would be super fun. I got this down to an hour or less, sometimes even as little as 10 minutes of planning work per gig, which was huge because if I could free up 2 hours per gig, then I would have an extra 300 free hours per year because I was doing a lot of gigs at that point. And what could I spend that on? I could spend that on booking more shows. And that meant I could potentially book up to 300 additional gigs per year with all that free time, or get more private lesson students, you know?
Right.
So that is when I created BookLive Pro as a web developer. I created this app that was built to do all this planning work, called it BookLive Pro. And I'd love to show you it because it is available for everybody to use. And I'll make an offer at the end of this webinar special for Cover Band Central. So you want to see it, Steve?
I'm sorry?
Would you like to see it?
Yeah. Let's go.
To show you how quickly somebody can go through my gigging funnel and how quickly I can use BookLive Pro to take that gig to the finish line. So first I generate some traffic, send them to the website, they browse the website, and they get convinced they're ready to book. So they click my Book Your Event page, which takes them into BookLive Pro. They enter in the details of their event, the approximate duration, the venue, which auto-completes from Google Maps. They let me know what type of event they're planning. They click Get Pricing. Instantly generates prices for them. They can then preview what they're going to get. They get the reviews that BookLive Pro has collected from previous clients. They get to watch videos. And when they're ready, they click the Book button. When they click the Book button, I have my group set up that they can either pay in full or pay the 25% deposit. It asks for their billing information. And then it presents them with my contract. I didn't even have to write this. It's so cool, super fast. When they're ready, they put in their card and they click this Book Your Event button, which then sends me, the band leader, a request, letting me know that I have a new booking request. So I get an email letting me know about this new booking request, and I get the chance to view it, see that they've signed the contract, chat with them, and if I'm available, I can accept the booking or I can decline it if I'm not. The alternative to this is I can still send them a manual contract and still have a conversation with them, and many groups do choose to do that in addition to this. But once I accept this gig, it adds it to my BookLive Pro dashboard. This is a dashboard for my group where I can see at a glance how much I've booked in the last month, how much money is in my account, and what gigs are coming up and the planning status of them. So let's take a look at this gig that we just booked. I can see that they booked my group for $1,200 for a 2-hour gig, and it already got the 25% deposit. They've already paid that. I can now chat with the client too. I can then see the contract. And in 2020, 2021, we've had to do a lot of addendums. So say we do need to change the date, we can do that very easily here and get them to sign a new addendum. And then I can start to plan out the timeline for the day. So this is going to be a wedding. So I'm going to add a timeline template for a wedding ceremony and cocktail hour. And this allows me as the band leader to start planning out songs from my group's library. So we want to add that song. We can also add music scores to this, which will send it out to my players eventually when I contract them. And it also gives me the ability to let my clients plan the set list too, if I choose to allow them to. So let's take a look at the payments. I can see that 2 minutes ago, they already paid with their credit card. BookLive already got me paid before I even showed up for the gig. And it will also send out an invoice as the date gets closer to collect the balance before we show up for the gig. So next, let's check out the musicians so that I can schedule the band. So when I go over to the musicians tab, I can see I have 4 spots for the string quartet, but I don't have any artists planned. So let's go ahead and send a request to artists from my list. So first I'm going to schedule myself, and BookLive pulls up my information. I have my whole list set up in here. So let's take a quick look at what my bandmates get when I send them a request. They get 2 things. They get an email with all of the gig details, date, time, venue, pay. And they also get a text message with similar information, and then they have a button to view the request. When they click that button, they get to see the same information with the added ability to check it out in Google Maps and then either accept or decline. When they accept it, it confirms, and then you get the chance to add it to your Google Calendar and then see the gig on BookLive so you can access the set list and chat with other musicians. So instantly the status changes. But let's say I don't want to go through this hassle of asking each individual artist. I'm going to use the autofill option, and it's going to request all of my favorite musicians for me and go down my hiring order if I have one set up. Once the musicians have accepted, it will allow me to chat with them, coordinate carpools, and also when the musicians have accepted, they will get access to the set list and any PDF scores that I have set up for them. But I want to save myself even more time. So I'm going to get the client involved in this planning process so I don't have to be in charge of the set list. I'm going to click Invite Client to Portal, and it will email a link to the client so they can access their portal without having to set up an account, anything like that. And when they view this portal, they get access to the entire performance. So they can see that they have paid $300 out of the $1,200, and they can actually make their remaining balance payment here. Also allows me to set up a questionnaire for them. If I need to know how many people are walking down the aisle of your wedding, we can take care of that in here. They can view their contract. They can see the timeline that we've got set up, and I can also allow them to edit it, but by default, it does not allow the client to edit the timelines. And then I do allow them to edit the set list, which for clients, we call them playlists. They have access to all of our song lists. So as they're planning their wedding at 2:30 in the morning, I'm asleep. They are working with their fiance to go through our song list and say, okay, we want Bruno Mars. They can search for it, check it, save it, and it adds to the set list, which then my musicians get access to that set list and those songs, the PDFs, right away. It's incredible. They can chat with me. And all in all, this cut down every single gig that I do from 3 hours of planning to, as little as 10 minutes sometimes, because all of the planning is done automatically. It's incredible. Awesome. So after I started using this whole software suite for my group, I did my reputation recovered. That wedding planner now trusts me again. And we got to 100 gigs per year in our second year. And there's just one more thing to get it to 150 paid gigs, and I'll share that with you. What were you going to say, Steve?
I just, wow, I'm blown away. It's really super cool how organized that is. I love a thing you didn't mention in that video there is about the players and how much they're getting paid shows up. And that's always a sticking point for musicians when you're hiring musicians. Sometimes musicians are a little timid about saying like, well, how much is the gig pay? But they don't have to ask. You cut right through that awkward. It's right there. So that's fantastic.
For sure. Yeah, that's one of my frustrations when other people ask me for gigs is they don't tell me how much it pays. How can I say yes unless I know?
Right.
But for sure. So we are cover band. You guys are Cover Band Central. So I would love to share with you the story of a cover band who is using this for their gigs. This is James from the Shirts and Skins band based in Minneapolis. And he's an amazing band leader. He's so nurturing. He teaches others the ropes, and he's got a great musical product too. So this is James.
My name is James Gross. I own Shirts and Skins band out of Minneapolis. We do probably anywhere between 200 and 280 shows a year. Festivals, weddings, street dances, some club stuff, kind of tour all over the U.S. So our goal was we kept getting so many requests that we were turning down all this work, and it was like, well, can we be a band, and does that give everybody the flexibility to have a life other than the band? The goal was to get to the point that we didn't need to turn down work and we could continue to grow healthy. So what all my time in the last year was trying to schedule all these people. It actually, I believe it came up in an Instagram ad. It was either Instagram or Facebook. We did that first month just to see if it worked. And what I was really impressed was the people that, especially the new, like the Gen Zs and the millennials that I had a hard time, that don't reply to emails. They don't reply to, you're lucky to get a text back. They absolutely don't answer their phone. I was amazed at the ones that I was having problems with that would be, a week or two of reminders. Sometimes 3 weeks of trying to get them to commit. Like in an hour, they reply. And having to go to their phone. And then the other ones, and I love being able to just go in and hit the remind and hit everybody's phone, and be like, I know you're late in bed, respond to these or you're going to get 15 of them, So it's nice to get back to why I started a band, which was the thrill of booking and the thrill of, that's the fun part, is that when you get to see, you make those contacts and now, coming out of a pandemic where there was no booking for a year, it's a storm. And it's like, I don't, if I can go in and accept a date and within 15 minutes, I can have it loaded into your system, sent out, I can see who's available. So it's been really fun just to have that time back. The biggest thing I would just say is, your company is a company that's about musicians, and that's, that's what this is about. And it's about building a community.
So that is James Shirts and Skins. And yeah, he is killing it. I mentioned before, he joined us in the middle of the pandemic and already won that 100 gig award.
That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. Cool. So that was secret 2, how to get the best band member to book and plan gigs for you 24/7. I've got one more secret here, and this one is for a lot of people who kind of wish they had more gigs. So I kind of already mentioned the funnel process, but here's how to light that on fire and get all the gigs that you want. So it came to a point for me where it was at the end of my second year of grad school, time to graduate and get a real person job, unless I could turn the heat up on my bookings. I did not want to get a real person job. I wanted to be a musician. And so I made the commitment to myself that I'm going to figure out this whole booking thing. And so I came up with something I call market domination, which is how to literally get other people booking gigs for me. So the first thing that I did was I took my gigging funnel and I identified the weaknesses and opportunities in that system. Where were the numbers low and how could I get those numbers higher? And so first, that 30% of people who visit my website and give me their email address, that was too low for me. And then when people went to the profile online, Wedding Wire, not all of them went to the website. I needed to figure out either could I get that higher or find other ways to get traffic. And then when I was selling the gigs, I wouldn't get yes every single time. I would get rejected. Still do get rejected from time to time, but less. And so those were the 3 things that I needed to figure out and fix. So first thing I did was I completely overhauled my website. I enrolled in some training courses and figured out marketing for websites. How do I improve conversions? And that transformed it into the website that books us at least 150 gigs every year. Then I needed to figure out the whole traffic thing. When somebody was visiting my profile, not all of them were visiting the website. There was only so much I could fix about my profile. So I needed to figure out a couple other ways to get people to visit the site. And so this was, kind of like what James Gross does, is he built his list of people and he would just go down it and call it and get people to visit the website and book. So that was one of them. Get referred by wedding planners, get referred by venues themselves, and then start showcasing live. How could I get people to see my private event group and fall in love with the music and book? And then I needed to become better at selling the gigs. So that's a hard skill. We are musicians. We're in the business of selling our gigs. And the sooner we realize that, then the sooner we can fix that and get better at it. So that's what I did. I learned to sell with more stories, use more social proof. Like, if James would say, the bars hire musicians because they want them to get people in and drinking and eating. You got to make money for the bar. So if you could tell that bar owner a story about another bar you played, we brought in 50, 100 people and they stayed for hours and drank. Then the bar owner sees dollar signs.
Sure.
And so once I figured out those things, that was what took us over the 100 gigs a year and to at least 150 gigs in the second year and enabled me to be a full-time musician. So it took me 5 years to learn all this. And it does work for a cover band. You heard James say it, solo acts, classical musicians, all types of musicians. You're not sacrificing the art of this. You get to play amazing music. You get to play with your friends and you get to have a good reputation, someone who's consistent and professional in everything they do. So I got one final story, and this is of a group that has multiple bands that they send out in a given day. James also kind of operates that, but this is Pendra from Viva La Strings, and she's been with us for a while now.
One reason I founded Viva La Strings is because I wanted to give more performance opportunities and a little bit of money to area musicians who are wonderful musicians, but maybe were not playing full time or just occasionally. Many had taken other positions and jobs, life happens. Well, we started getting really, really busy. And I was still doing a lot of paper contracts and invoicing the old-fashioned way and receiving checks and some credit cards. So it was getting a little bit laborious. So just a lot of circumstances happened, and I was introduced to Jared Judge. Started talking, and I got really excited about what he was doing. It just took a lot of pressure off my shoulders. But now we are using it 100% of the time. BookLive has just become an amazing tool. It's just great to have all that information in one spot. It's just been a real blessing. And I'm thankful for Jared and his team for coming up with this. And I appreciate all the work they put into making it better. So what I have to say is, Viva la BookLive.
Awesome. Cool. So as you can see, I hope you're seeing that booking gigs used to be hard, but it's not if you have the strategies and the tools. So does that make sense, Steve?
Yeah, man. It's great. I love it.
Cool. So let me ask you a question. If you used the first secret and identified your gigging funnel, then you used BookLive Pro to automate a lot of the stuff that doesn't require human connection, and then you use the market domination strategy to drive as much people to become aware of your band, do you think this would work for you in some of the cover bands you work for or work with?
Yeah, absolutely. What really resonates with me is, especially when I was a band leader, in the communication aspect of it, how much time I would spend sending messages to people, sending set lists, and all the stuff that you guys do automatically there. Because there's so many different ways to communicate, through text, through Facebook Messenger, through email, and it would just get super, super confusing. Like, how do I get in touch with this keyboard player? Like, I'm not sure what he's going to respond to. But having it all in one place like that, and having all that information, especially for each of the musicians, where they don't even have to ask any questions. They just can look in there. They can see when the gig is, what songs they need to play or need to know, how much they're getting paid, what time they need to show up. I mean, it's all there in one place, and it's fantastic. I wish I had that tool when I was a band leader.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So I know that I've given a lot of information, and a lot of people on this webinar might feel like the girl over there drinking from a fire hose. So is it okay if I make a special offer to the people on this masterclass?
Absolutely. Yeah,
cool.
Please.
All right, so I'm going to make a special offer available only to Cover Band Central members who are watching this. And so what you're going to get is you're going to get access to this BookLive Pro software for free for 6 months. It's typically a $40 a month software subscription, but they're going to get 6 months of it for free. I mentioned all the stuff inside. It's all this good stuff that helps you run your band and feel more in control. Contracts, bandmate management, client management, all this good stuff to book weddings, corporate events, festivals, bar gigs, and get rid of some other stuff that people are paying for, or some of the stuff that just is, quite frankly, frustrating and not meant for what we do. But I want to make sure people understand there's still the human element. To me, that's the most important part. And these are tools to get us more to the human connection. So that is valued at $390, and you're getting it for free. But the next thing is, I've interviewed a bunch of our 100 and 250 gig award winners about how they built up their bands from scratch and got the ball rolling to be booking shows every weekend and making a lot of money for it. Recorded those interviews, bought the rights to them from them, and they said, yeah, put it together in a package so you can watch these interviews and learn how they built it and how you can build it using their tools too. So you're going to get access to that. We have a cover band, we have jazz band, string quartet, and they ask them that 30-day questions. You have 30 days to start from scratch. How do you get your first paid gig? And each of them has a different answer. And it's so cool to see how people would go about that. It'll help you turn up the heat on your existing act. And it will also help you start an act if you don't have one yet. Someone like Carly, who had no act, she went through this training, and now her group has several gigs every single week. So this kind of stuff works. It's just another social proof. So that is worth $397. I paid $100 for each of those interviews. And so far, they're getting over $787 of value. But the next thing I want to give you is some of these training. So gigging funnels, course, and templates that my team has created to, if you don't have a website, you can get one started. How do I sell my first gig? This is a whole all-in-one course that has email templates, phone scripts that you can use to call, corporate event planners and say, hey, here's my group, book us for your next thing. So you're getting that. Again, website training, how to get more people to visit your website. Oops, my wife is texting me. Booking training, and all the stuff that we used to have to do the hard way, like play for open mics, play for exposure, all the stuff that you don't have to do anymore because it works and people love this stuff. And so that's valued at almost $400. So you're getting over $1,000 of value so far. Then a lot of musicians don't have a contract. I started out without one. I found one online. It worked to a point, but then I figured, let me hire a lawyer in the music industry to put together a contract for me. So I spent $500 and had this lawyer put together a contract that I use for every single gig. Covers everything now, so I go to my gigs feeling secure. So this probably won't work for a lot of bar gigs, but I use it on every wedding gig, every corporate event gig, and private gigs too. So I spent $500 on that. You're getting over $1,600. But I want to do one more thing, Steve. I want to give people who are on this call monthly group coaching with all of the other BookLive pros. So some of the people who have already won those awards, come to it, bring us your questions on marketing strategy, band leading, solving problems, even motivating. How do I keep going? And feedback. You want to show us your website? We'll critique it and give you suggestions to improve it. And so that is valued at $300 here. Total value of $1,978. So if all that it did was help you build a system to help you predictably book your favorite gigs, would it be worth $2,000? I mean, if you're booking over $2,000 in shows, I'd say so. If all it did was help you run your busy gigging act without doing extra work, it saves me over $17,000 of time every single year. So for me, it's totally worth that. And figure out the right strategy to get more people to refer your group and turn the heat up on your bookings. Would that be worth it? So when I was pricing this out, I had two options. I could make it as cheap as possible, try to sell as many, but that wouldn't be worth it. I want to build something that will help you build a lasting group that books and plays as much as you want. So I had to go for the second option, which requires a slightly higher investment, but in exchange, I can devote more time and resources to get your success. So how many of your favorite gigs a month do you want? You want 1 gig a month, 5, 10 more? How much would you pay to get as many as you want? So I'm going to fly through some of these. Some people have actually paid me thousands of dollars to help them set up their group. I didn't want to ask that of Cover Band Central members. So because you guys are here, I'm going to drop that price. You're getting all of those cool things for just $197.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a 10%, or, we're dividing that number by 10. If anyone's interested in that, all you have to do is go to bit.ly/BookLiveCBC. CBC stands for Cover Band Central. And that's available right now. You'll see a web page. It'll ask for your information, your credit card. You hit the button, and then instantly you'll get access to the software, the training course, and you'll get the invitations to the group coaching. You'll get the interviews. And so people on this webinar have two choices. They could not do anything and just consume the content and continue. It's risk-free. The second option is where it really gets exciting. So if they make the small investment and give it a shot, they're going to see some amazing results. And I'll start to wrap things up here, but we have a philosophy at our company that if we can't help you get booked and save time, we don't deserve your money and we don't really want it, because we believe in what we do so much. So that's why we have a 30-day guarantee. If you buy it today and you don't get any value out of it within the next 30 days, let us know. You'll get your money back. There's no financial risk at all. So the only thing that you're risking is a couple minutes of your time to figure it out and see if it will work for you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Cool. So just to kind of recap, if they take advantage of it by going to bit.ly/BookLiveCBC, they're going to get the BookLive Pro software for 6 months included. They're going to get the 100 Gig Award interviews with all the different bands that are using it. They're going to get the Gigging Funnels course and the templates. They're going to get the Bulletproof Contract templates. And they're going to get the monthly group coaching with other band leaders. Total value of $1,978 just for $197. Is it okay if I just add on a little bit more value to the Cover Band Central?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So for the first 50 people, if you're a standard BookLive Pro member, you only get to manage one act through it. I know a lot of people here have a cover band and an acoustic duo and a solo act. So our regular members only get to manage one of them, and they only get one contract template. But for the first 50 people, we're going to let them manage 3 different acts, and then they can customize their contract templates, plus they get our priority support. So that is it. So cool. If you're interested in this, go to bit.ly/BookLiveCBC. And if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask them, or you can reach out to me, jared@booklive.com after this. So thanks so much, Steve. I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Are you done with the screen? You want me to remove it? You want me to keep this?
Yeah, we can remove it. That's fine.
Okay, very cool. Awesome presentation, Jared. I love what you've done. The crazy amount of work that you've put into this, and the money you've spent, the time you spent to put into this, to create this value for musicians here is just, I mean, it's invaluable, really. Like I said, when I was a band leader, I wish I had something like this where I can really keep everything as organized. Time is such a valuable thing. And as you pointed out several times through your presentation, I'm a big fan of Shark Tank. I watch that all the time. And I'm always trying to learn about business and trying to get better at what I do. And one thing that Mark Cuban, who is a multi-billionaire, says all the time is the most valuable thing is time. Time to spend with your family, time to do things that you want to do, rather than spending time doing the tedious work that could be streamlined, could be done easier, could be done quicker, and just more organized. And you have put this together for everybody, and it's tremendous. What I mean, the small investment that people make, they're going to make that money back like that just by getting gigs booked, or just by having that time back to do other things, maybe to teach lessons like you said you were doing, or to just spend time with their family or relax. Is it worth $200 to relax? It is for me.
For me, it is too.
So I really highly recommend everybody, CBC, check that out. I put the link in the description that Jared spelled out, bit.ly/BookLiveCBC. The link is in the description. So you can just click on that link and get started right now. Check it out. And like Jared said, 30 days you have to check it out. If you're not getting gigs booked, if you don't find the value in here, then he'll give you your money back. Yeah. But it's up to you to take the step. Click on that link, get signed up, dig into all these resources that Jared has provided, all the work. I mean, the contract thing alone is worth it, because a lot of people don't understand how to do that. They're not going to go pay $500 to a lawyer to get a contract written. And they don't know how to research it. They certainly don't know how to write one. So just that one thing alone is worth it. But all the other resources that you put in there, it's just a tremendous thing that you put together here for musicians to get more gigs. Now is the time, guys. We're back out of this pandemic. I think it's a boom period right now.
Oh, really? Yes.
Are you feeling it?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I'm feeling it too. It's a boom period. People are out there. They want to go see live music. The people that postpone their weddings and their corporate events and all that stuff, they're getting back on it, and they're hiring bands. So if you want to get a ton of gigs, this is the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Even bars that never had live music before, we're seeing them making new patios and just hiring. It's crazy.
Right. Yes, it's good stuff, man. Thank you so much, Jared, for being here. All right. So Tina asked a question. She said, for the special offer, what is the service term?
Yeah, good question, Tina. So you're going to get 6 months free of the software. And then once you're done with the 6 months, it'll roll you into a $40 a month thing, which you can cancel it at any time. There's no commitment for, you're not committed to any long period.
There you go. And you have 30 days to just go check it out, which is plenty of time. You don't even need 30 days. You need 1 day.
Yeah.
To just go in there and read all this stuff, get those tips from the other people that have had their successes with BookLive, and an outstanding community of people that we're all in this together, guys. Let's all help each other out. This is the way to do it. We're not in competition. We're all in this together. And that's one of the reasons I started Cover Band Central, is to have a community of people that support each other, to teach each other, that help each other, and raise the game for all of us. We're all sick of making, a lot of people of the same money they've been making for 10 years, for 20 years, for 30 years. We have an opportunity here to do much better. And this program, BookLive, that Jared has put together, is a tremendous resource for you to take advantage of. So I highly recommend it for everybody out there to check it out. Click on that link in the description.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate it. And thank you, Cover Band Central, for having me.
My pleasure. Jared is also in the Cover Band Central group too. So if you want to give him a shout out there in the group, please do so, or reach out to him. And obviously you can always reach out to me. Steve at coverbandcentral.com is my, there it is. It's my email address. You can always reach out to me and ask me questions. And if you have a question for Jared, and if you can't reach him, forward it to me and I will be happy to forward it to Jared. And that's it, man. Thank you so much for this. And everybody out there, get going. Let's get booking. Let's get out there and make some noise.
Let's do it. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Steve. And once again, if you're interested, bit.ly/BookLiveCBC.
That's the way to go. All right, Jared. Thanks a lot, man.